a little company in Seattle called Microsoft called us and said, we'd like to make Spring Boot and Spring Cloud a first-class citizen on Azure. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Ryan Morgan, who leads our Spring team, to tell us more about that along with Microsoft.
Great. Thank you, James, for that warm welcome. I'm so excited to be here today to talk about our growing partnership with Microsoft. John, thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here as well. Hey, I think we've been in partnership for about 3 years, haven't we?
Yes.
And during that time, we've seen tremendous growth of the Pivotal platform on Azure. And we've done a lot of work together to kind of bring some of our largest customers and their biggest workloads onto Azure and give them tremendous control over that experience. And that's important to us, I think, because Azure has been growing tremendously. And it's now in about 95%, I think, of the Fortune 500. And a lot of those customers, they're bringing their Java workloads onto Azure. And as they bring those Java workloads onto Azure, we see more and more Spring coming to Azure. It's really hard these days to talk to a Java customer and not hear Spring. And that has increased the importance for us of figuring out how we deliver an awesome Spring experience on Azure.
That's right, John. And a lot of that's rooted in open source as well. Companies want to have open standards, open APIs. And the Spring and Microsoft teams have been working really hard on delivering those via integrations with Spring Cloud and Spring Boot to ensure that applications running on Azure can connect and work with all the various services that are native on Azure.
Yeah, we've created a ton of integrations so that Spring developers coming to Azure can take advantage of the Azure native capabilities. And we've also done a lot of work with start.spring.io to make sure that that initial experience is incredibly smooth. But where do we go from here? Like, what can we do that's better? I think in the last conversation that we had, we started to hear from customers more and more about how we can reduce friction. How do we make it even easier to bring those Spring applications onto Azure? How do we make it a delightful experience for our mutual customers? And as inside Microsoft, we started to wonder how we did that. We kind of said, we've had a great experience working with Pivotal. Let's partner with Pivotal again, and let's figure out how to deliver something really game-changing.
And today we're very excited that Microsoft with Pivotal are announcing Azure Spring Cloud, a fully managed offering for running your Spring applications on Azure.
That's right. This is a jointly developed service that we are running on Azure. It is fully managed. It is built on top of our Kubernetes service, Azure Kubernetes service. So it is a hyperscale service, but it is completely managed. It does everything Spring Cloud would do that you expect. It has the service registry, the gateway, everything. You can bring your applications unchanged onto Azure. And we've also partnered with Pivotal to make sure that we bring in their key technology that you were just hearing about, the Pivotal Build service.
That's right. And as you're saying, zero code changes. Integrates directly with all the services that you use on Azure, databases, messaging, caching systems, and comes out of the box with monitoring and tracing via Azure App Insights, but also supports all the familiar tools that you use day to day, like Datadog, New Relic, etc.
Yep. But I think we might have been talking too much, and maybe we should actually show the audience a little bit of what this might look like.
Should you do a demo?
Why don't we invite onto stage Emily from Pivotal and Julien from Microsoft to give us a demo of what this could look like.
Awesome, John.
So hi, everybody. I'm Julien DuBois from Microsoft, and I work on Azure.
And I'm Emily Casey. I'm an engineer at Pivotal. And today, we are going to be demoing deployment of an application composed of microservices to Spring Cloud Azure. So I know what features I want from a platform, but I'm fairly new to the Spring Cloud Azure user interface. So Julien's going to walk me through how I can accomplish my goals using this new product. So let's get started. I believe you already have the source code for the application?
Yeah. So Emily sent me, I think, 4 microservices, 1 gateway, and I have to deploy everything on Azure Spring Cloud. So let me go to my cluster overview. So that's a new service. So we've got quite a lot of menus, so we will try to show the most relevant one, as we've got only 10 minutes. If I go to the apps here, we can see we've got your 4 microservices and your gateway. They're all running in Azure Spring Cloud, all managed.
This looks great, but can we see the application actually running?
Yeah, so let me open up the gateway. Oh, sorry. Let me open up the gateway. And here, we can see your application running. So let me log in. So your app is running.
This looks great, but I actually made an update to this app. I replaced the Benjamin Franklin image with something a little bit flashier. I'd like to deploy that new updated version. And if you don't mind, I'd like to try it out myself using the Azure command line, because I'm personally more comfortable in the terminal.
Yeah, so I began by showing the graphical user interface, but everything can be scripted with the Azure command line. And I know you're more comfortable with it. So I already built your app. It's just with Maven, so you don't do much. And I put you in the right directory. And with the Azure command line, I'm going to let you do a blue-green deployment live on the cluster.
All right, so I have the Azure command line, and I got the Spring Cloud plugin here. So let's see what I can do. Looks like I can work with an application. That's great. That's exactly what I want. What I want to do is create a deployment. So I'm going to say deployment, create. This is for the Gateway app.
Yeah, you need to add your ad name.
And I'm going to give the name of my deployment. Let's call this green, because we're going to do a blue-green deployment with it later. And of course, I need the path to my source code. I believe we have a jar on the file system here. Yeah. All right, let's get that started. So while this is running, I have some questions about the deployment that we were looking at earlier. How are all of my microservices wired together? I'm assuming there's some sort of service discovery. What did you have to do to get that set up?
Yeah, so let's have a look on our cluster. So we've got our 4 microservices. We've got our gateway. And as you can see, we've got a discovery status, which is up for everything. So there's a Spring Cloud registry, which is running. It is fully managed, fully secured. It's in high availability. In fact, it's a cluster. And basically, you don't do anything. You just connect to it, and it's working, and it's managed, and it's supported also, both by Pivotal and by Microsoft.
So it's important to me to keep my configuration for my application separate from my application source. I want to be able to update it without redeploying. How can I do that using Spring Cloud Azure?
Yeah, so that's the second main service that we have. We've got a config server, so it's the next menu. As we can see here, this is also a Spring Cloud config server. It's fully managed, fully secured, clustered, the same thing as a registry. And it's connected here. So here I'm using a token. You can also use SSH. And it's connected here to a Git repository where you've got your Spring Boot configuration. So you can just edit your files, commit them, push them, and then your app's configuration will be automatically updated.
That looks great. And you've said this is managed for me, so I don't need to worry about managing or operating these 2 Spring Cloud components we're using, the config server and the service discovery.
No, you get nothing to. It's like the apps also. The apps are built by our build service, and the OS, the JVM, everything is managed for you. So you don't see Kubernetes, you just see apps, and they are managed for you. You just run them.
Awesome. So let's imagine I'm getting a lot of traffic to my gateway, and I want to scale up the instances. How can I do that using this product?
Yeah. So once again, everything is managed for you. You really need to see that as a platform as a service, where everything is managed. So if I go to our gateway, I can scale it here. So I'm going to do it with a graphical interface. So I can do, for example, I can put more CPU. I can put more RAM, more instances. And I just save this. This is going to start my gateway with more CPU, for example, here. You can also do it just command line, so you can script it. And in the near future, we'll also have auto-scalability, like in all Azure services. You just click one button, it auto-scales for you. So you don't really care about it. It's just done for you.
I'm expecting to have customers all over the world, and I want to make sure my account service is connected to a geographically distributed database. Can you explain to me how services bindings are going to work?
Yeah, so let's have a look at your account service. So here we've got service bindings. So currently it's connected to a MongoDB database. So let me delete it just to show how it's working. I'm going to connect it to a Cosmos DB database. So Cosmos DB is API compatible with MongoDB, so it's going to work the same way. But it's a geographically distributed database. So here we are in the US. We can also replicate it in France, because I'm French, so I like it. And in South Korea. And I can just save it. And it's going to distribute my data all over the world. So it's ID secured. And here, I'm going to create a service binding. I'll create Cosmos. Cosmos. It's automatically finding my database. So here I've got SpringOne platform. My API is MongoDB. The database is Piggymetrics, so it's my app. Here we've got the key. I just create this, and this is going to bind automatically my app to the database. So I've got highly available application, ID secured, which is also connected to a highly available database.
I imagine our new deployment must be done by now. Let's do a blue-green deploy so users can see the updated version.
Yeah.
All right. So let's use the Azure command line again. Talking about an app, I want to set the deployment this time. The name of the app is the gateway, and I'm going to use the green deployment. Let's give it a go.
Yes. So this takes about 2 seconds, so I'm going fast because I want to take risk. So this is the old image, and this is redeployed. So if I just restart it, we're having the new image arriving.
Ah, that looks
incredible.
great. I love
it.
it.
Deployment on stage.
Yeah. So everything's working well right now, but let's imagine, something goes wrong, there's an issue in the future. How do I look at the logs for my microservices?
Yeah. So, of course, you can have issues with your app, like any apps. So let's have a look at Azure Monitor. So that's a service which is provided by Azure, which is probably, well, to me, of very high value on top of Azure Spring Cloud. Because Azure Monitor is very complete. So let's have a look first at the most obvious screen, the logs. Here we've got all your Spring Boot logs arriving, and you can query them. So we've got like a SQL-like language with auto-completion. Hang on, because it's an English keyboard. So I can say, oh, I only want stuff from my gateway. Oh, sorry, there's an E. And, oh, sorry, and run it. And so you can drill down and have more detailed information on what's happening in your app.
This looks great. In addition to logs, I also obviously care about metrics. I want to monitor the health of my components.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Of course, so logs is useful, but metrics is also very important. So when you go to the metrics screen, you've got access to the metrics from the OS, from the JVM, and from Micrometer, so from all Spring Boot. So it's very neat tool to have detailed information on what's happening in your app. I will just have a look at the memory of your app. So we can see, oh, you're not using a lot of memory. You're using 30 megabytes. We've got 1 gig, so your app is doing good. So that's everything's great for you.
Given that this is a microservice architecture, just the logs and the metrics for the individual components aren't going to be sufficient for me. I care about data like the average request times between my components, things like that. How can I investigate that sort of information?
Yeah, also, I see you do lots of microservices. What we've just seen is good for monoliths, but for microservice, issues are much more complex than that, so you want to have distributed tracing. This also is fully managed, and it works out of the box without doing anything. I'm going to take the logs for the last 30 days to have more info than just the last hour. So your applications are automatically instrumented, so this graph works automatically. I didn't do anything. And we can see we've got different microservices. They are all connected. And we can have information on the number of calls and the performance of those calls. Is everything good for you?
That particular request looks pretty slow. Can we drill down?
Yeah, this one is like nearly 1 second. So if I click here, I can investigate the failures or investigate the performance issue. So I can just drill down. I have more information on what's happening in your app. So we can see that here you've got a post request, which is rather slow. So maybe you need to investigate that, or maybe we need to scale up the service. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like I have enough data here that I can use this to optimize my app later. But thank you so much for showing me around. That's been a great experience.
And thank you so much for doing all the typing.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Great job. All right. Thank you, Julien. Thank you, Emily. That was fantastic. So the private preview is open today. There's a link up here where you can sign up for that. You can also learn more this week. We have sessions. There's 2 sessions tomorrow. And then, of course, we'd love to see you in either the Pivotal or Microsoft booth to learn more. Thank you very much.